Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm David, once again, representing the Pre-Uni New College Head Office, and I'm pleased to have all of you here with us. Yes, last night, we did writing selective school exam writing review, and we got very positive feedback from our parents, and thank you for that. So tonight's webinar is aims to provide you with an in-depth overview of the 2023 Selective School Reading Test. And we will thoroughly analyze the question from previous exams, mainly focusing on the this year's Selective School Test. So we have more than 700 audience tonight. So given the limited time available and the large audience, we may not be able to hold a live Q&A tonight, but you can feel free to type any question you have in the chat box, and I will carefully review all the questions and respond in live in the chat box if I can, or I will send an email to you with the frequently asked question, or I may post on the Cyber School news section. Yes. Okay, now it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter for tonight's webinar, Ms. Kelly Jones. Ms. Kelly is an exceptional, experienced HSC English teacher, and he is collaborate with us as an education consultant for exam preparation courses such as STTC and OCTTC. Okay, hello, Kelly.
Hi, David. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us tonight. And now I will hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us this evening. So my name is Miss Kelly Jones, and I will be taking you through the 2023 Selective School Test, or a fair bit of it at least, and also looking at some samples from last year's Selective Schools Placement Test as well. So we can demonstrate each part of the test and what we know and understand now about each section and what is required of the students in order to achieve success in them. So in tonight's webinar, this is a brief overview of what you can expect me to be discussing: the analysis of the 2023 reading test, best we know, and the structure of the test. We will look at the stylistic features that questions have been generally based upon, and some examples and effects of the most common stylistic features, including examples from the exam. The idea of reading for meaning, so what that means in terms of finding the meaning of words in context, which is a really significant part of two sections of the test. We'll also look at implied meaning and how important that is, particularly for the higher end questions. So if you're familiar with Bloom's taxonomy of questions, for example, then implied meaning is right up the top tier of those types of questions in terms of difficulty. We'll discuss some figurative language features and their effects and samples from the text, the purposes of text and how questions and answers are derived from that, the opinions and values and feelings that emerge through language. So this is also quite a sophisticated analysis of text, and something that really discriminates between just a simple understanding or comprehension of the text as opposed to an analysis. Comparing and contrasting, again, that's a higher order skill. The text organization for each extract, if it's an extract or poem in section 2's case, part 2's case, and the author's point of view and how that influences the language that has been used and the meanings and how the students can interpret meaning from the author. And as David has said, he will be answering some questions and answers as the webinar goes. There are a lot of audience members, so we may not be able to get to every individual question, but I know David will cover those best he can on those forums that he just introduced. Okay, so let's just talk firstly about the structure, the format of the test. The department has been or provided much more clarity this year about the different parts of the reading test and what we can expect to find. Previous to this, with the new test, it's been a little bit unpredictable, but now we have a lot more clarity around what to expect. So the table here includes a summary of the 4 parts of the test, part 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we have a description of the text types expected in each part, the type of question format, and the number of questions assigned to each part. So you can see the weighting, I suppose, of each section. Let's begin just with part 1, and I'm going to go into each section in more detail, so I won't spend a lot of time here, but just as an overview, part 1 is a narrative or a descriptive extract from a work of adolescent fiction, or 2 short extracts on a related theme. Typically, one would be from a past context contrasted with one from a modern piece. So this is very clear in that it would be one or the other, no matter if it's the narrative description or the extracts related compared. There are 4 option multiple choice questions. So that's A, B, C, and D that students need to select the correct answer from. And there's 8 questions attributed to part 1. Part 2 is a poem. Again, it's 4 option multiple choices. So that's A, B, C, or D. And there's 6 questions based on the poem. Part 3 is a factual text. This has 2 options again. A factual text with 6 sentences removed. So that was, I think, last year's or this year's, one of the 2. They swapped them. Or a factual text divided into 6 paragraphs. And then there's a set of summary phrases. Either way, the skill that's being tested here is comprehension around matching and being able to summarize main ideas and implied meanings, which we'll look at closely in a moment. There's 6 questions always for part 3. And then part 4 is 4 shorter texts. They're all related to one theme. And multiple choice, again, there's 10 questions there. This is probably part 1 and part 4, I think, are the most heavy in terms of reading, like how much text there actually is to get through, being able to read quickly, being able to get the main ideas out quickly, find details quickly. So those parts of the test are particularly onerous in the length of how much there is to actually read. The other parts of the test are a little bit shorter, but they require different skills to succeed in those. Okay, so going into more detail now of part 1. This is just pasted out of that first table. So it's consisting either a single piece of fiction or a comparison task about the 2 themes. We know there's 8 multiple choice. The first of these, the fiction task, would require candidates to read an extract. It would be from the department, say, a modern fiction text aimed at a younger audience. So this is good because we know that the readability will be easier, quicker to get through because the target audience is young. What we can also assume is that the questions then would be of a more advanced level because the information is somewhat easier to access. So what do students need to do in that part 1? You need to read for detail, as well as what they are now calling globally. So a global reading of the text, this is a new buzzword, it seems, is looking at the text as a whole. So we've got reading for detail, which is, vocab and main ideas and facts and things that we can extract explicit answers from. And then globally is looking at the text overall. That bullet point list there is also lifted straight from the department. They say that these are the elements that the questions are derived from and about. So stylistic features, that's the features of the language in the text. It can include maybe the figurative language techniques that you'll be familiar with, like metaphors, personification, simile, but other things as well. The meanings of words in context. So this is testing students' ability to gauge meaning. Well, the assumption is that some of the words they would not be familiar with. There's no point, reading dictionaries, no. But to prepare for this section, having a really broad, wide reading habit helps, because you're much better prepared to be able to make an educated guess about the meaning of a word in the sentence that it's from or within the paragraph. Implied meaning, again, that's using a lot of clues and background knowledge to bring to the text. Wide reading, again, it's a good discriminator. It's not something you can teach. You can't teach this type of thinking, but you can master the skill, if you like. The effects of language features, words, phrases, these are repeated throughout, so I don't want to spend a lot of time just reading off the screen to you, but it's important to know that the test really has to be derived from what the department stipulates here. So it can't be sort of, wildly outside these parameters. We would expect to find these skills in the reading test. Just briefly, the alternative task would be 2 short extracts. So this is where the assessment is about comparing and contrasting. And because the literature is one from a past context and one from a modern context, then the students need to really be able to read into the related theme and ask questions about, well, why has the author written in this way? What about the context has influenced or shaped or motivated the way that they have written? How was it received at the time? So the role of the audience is also something to be thought about here. It does say that the texts are typically narrative, so stories, or descriptive in nature. I mean, that's not a solid law or rule that they've said, but typically those text types are the best suited to that type of task. So the question focuses, I'm on the 3rd point here, are similar to those for the youth fiction task and will require this: careful reading of each extract to locate detailed information. In these multiple choice questions, we sometimes see tricks where, there's more than one correct answer provided, and it's a matter of discerning, well, which is the most correct answer, and it's testing this. Can you locate detailed information? And the global reading, again, is looking at the text as a whole. So let's jump into some explicit examples here from the 2023 paper. I have not included the whole short story extract here because it was like 1,700 words long. So if you want to go and look up this whole extract, I don't know how much of it was in the test exactly, but based on the questions, this is enough to get us started. So it's a short story extract. The test will always indicate what the text type is, and the main idea or the title is going to give us a lot of clues. The Great Brain Robbery, obviously a bit of a pun there, jumping off the Great Train Robbery, which is a 20th century text, a train to impossible places. So we've already got metaphors appearing. We can expect that this is about identity or adventure and looking, for something to be uncovered throughout a short story. Now, it is an extract, so don't expect that it's a nice, neat orientation, complication, climax, resolution. No, it could be pulled or lifted from any part of a story. So it's important to be familiar with all types and all parts of different stories. And that, you get that just by reading lots of different stories, which you do all the time. So I'll just read a little bit of the extract just to set the tone and help with the questions. Susie sat at the kitchen table, too nervous and excited to eat. Instead, she pushed her dinner around the plate with her fork and stole a glance at the clock for what felt like the 100th time that evening. To her surprise, it was 5 to 7 already, only 5 minutes left. Okay, so this sets up for us the setting, the main character, the protagonist, Susie. We already have like a tone that she is nervous about something, so it's building tension. There's going to be a reveal. What is it that she's nervous about? There's the setting here, nice descriptions showing how she feels, pushing her dinner around the plate. You know, the author doesn't have to say that she was antsy, because we know that from here, the author showing us. Then we have a lot of dialogue in this extract. So I'll read on. Ellipsis, which is why I've decided to send an email to the school, said her mother. So we've thrown in here straight into the action. The mother is saying she sent an email. Who was sitting beside her? She had a piece of broccoli on the end of her fork and jabbed the air with it as she spoke. I've never seen such behavior, and from a teacher. Okay, so here's our conflict. It's between the mum, the teacher, something's happened, and she's contacting the school. Susie's father nodded emphatically. He had a mouthful of chicken and his plate was almost clean already. I mean, singling Susie out like that, her mother continued. It's no better than bullying, and I'm going to tell them so. Characterization is strong here. The dialogue reveals the dominant and assertive personality of the mother. Susie, of course, being the child, is more passive, and the father has a mouthful of food and hasn't contributed yet. So really nice characterization. We've already got the power play set up between the characters just in the first few lines. As students practice, they get really good at being able to lift this information as they read and save a lot of time. So you become a really close reader, and you eventually, with practice, can lift this information simultaneously whilst you're reading. Mum, please, M-O-M, American context, groaned Susie, just leave it. So she doesn't want to be part of this conflict. No, I will not leave it, Susie, said her mother, turning the broccoli on her, and neither should you. You have to stand up to people like that or they'll walk all over you. There's themes emerging about power, about independence, about children versus adults and the roles that they play. There's family here. There's things about success. I mean, I'm just throwing out some ideas of how students need to think in order to anticipate the questions. Now, let's look at the questions, some of them. The first one was, what is contrasted in the beginning of the story? So this is good because it orientates the reader. Where do I go? To the beginning of the story. The options there, you can read through them yourself. I won't read through every single thing on the page. We'll be here all night. But A, Susie and her mother's feelings towards the situation. Now, I've just below the answers there written some of the evidence that I used on the fly to deduce that is the correct answer. So there's descriptions, first of all, which show the differences between Susie and the mother's feelings. The author tells us that Susie is nervous and excited, and they show us by her just saying, just leave it. The mother's characterized by, no, I will not leave it. And then there's some more showing here with the Susie pushing things around the plate and the mother jabbing the fork. So these are ways that their feelings towards the situation have been revealed in the start of the story, the beginning of the story, okay? So it's important to read the question and answer exactly what the question is asking, not in the middle of the story, not at the end of the story, which might be where you finished, of course, the beginning. So follow the directions of the question, really important. What is implied? Now, you haven't read the whole extract, okay? So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the whole story. But what is implied when there's a troll, spoiler alert, meets Susie, and it is A, that they've not seen each other for a long time. The evidence, this is an implied meaning question. The evidence is that Susie burst into a huge grin when she sees the troll, and she throws her arms around the creature and she says, as she squeezes him, "I missed you." So these actions and words imply they haven't seen each other for a long time. Question 2, by calling Susie and her mother for a chat, what is implied about Mr. Marchwood, who, by the way, is the teacher that they're in conflict with? So as that conflict develops throughout the dialogue, you can read the extract, as I've said, probably you can find it online. As that develops, it's really clear through his reactions that he's being narrow-minded. He's quite rigid in his thinking, and he says things like, physics has laws. You can't just go around breaking the laws. She isn't doing it properly. You have to follow the steps. So these types of statements as well suggest that he is narrow-minded. The next 3 questions, here we go. Why does Mr. Marchwood become more flustered throughout the talk? So this requires students to jump through the text and look at a whole range of different parts to be able to come to a whole understanding of why he gets more flustered. The answer is C, that he realized that Susie and her mother might have a valid point. The evidence there is revealed through the dialogue. He gets pretty flustered and starts repeating himself, stuttering like, oh, because. And he does eventually concede that, as a matter of fact, the calculations appear to be perfectly sound. So he does reveal that they perhaps do have a valid point. So it's a bit of a victory story in that way, because you expect to come up against the teacher, the system, and not win. But in this case, our protagonist and the mum, they, have a valid point against the school or the teacher. Everyone likes that story, the underdog. Question 4, did Susie do 2 months prior? This is like a find it question. It's listed in the text, and it explicitly details that 2 months ago she had woken in the night to find this troll building a railway in her house. So there's a fantasy element here, and the imagination of this girl is running wild. Question 5, what is contrasted at the beginning of the story? That was the first example we took, and we know it is the feelings. Now, last questions for part 1. 6, what can be implied about Susie's dad as he calms the mother down? It's B, he doesn't always succeed. That's revealed through observational descriptions of Susie's father, who, it actually says, on a good day, this meant he was going to try and calm mum down, and on a good day he could do it, but on a bad day it made things worse. So this kind of shows us that it doesn't always succeed. 7, Fletcher's characteristics. Fletch is the troll in the story, so sweet and loving, and that characterization comes about during a hug at the end, and it says here in bold, he made no move to dislodge her. So this shows that the hug was long, and he wasn't trying to push her away, and there's a lot of love and affection revealed through that embrace. So they're reading for meaning there. It's contextual, it's implicit, it's inferred. And question 8, what is Susie doing to the law of physics? This is a hard question because there's more than one half right answer. She was trying to work against it, yes. Overall, that's what she was doing. She was abiding by it. No, she was rearranging it, yes. But that's less correct, because overall, she was doing more than just rearranging it. And as a result, she was trying to work against it, and ultimately against the teacher as well. Not intentionally, I might add, but because he was a man of physics, he aligned himself with those laws very closely. And she did not understand it was wrong. So part 2 is always based so far on a short poem. This second dot point, really important to take away. Questions will not assess knowledge of formal literary terms, but candidates may be asked to understand the effect of stylistic features in the poem, including the use of imagery and metaphor. Questions may also focus on implicit meaning in the poem and understanding its organization and structure and the writer's purpose. So what I really want to highlight is that the questions do not assess knowledge of formal literary terms. That means there's not going to ever be any questions like, what is a metaphor? Or identify the technique in this quote. That's testing just like rote knowledge of literary terms. The test doesn't do that anymore. It aims to test not what you know, but the way you think. And so it's the effect of those features that are actually much more focused on. 2023's poem was The Curtain by Judith Wright, and the context provided there is the year 1971. I'll just read it quickly. It was the curtains softly rising and falling, reminded me you were home, who had been gone, who had been so long away. And when I went to wake you, I stood in silence watching, your mouth softened in sleep, the lids where your eyes lay. So grown you looked, in the same unaltered room. So much of your childhood you were already forgetting, while I remembered. Yet, in the unforgetting dream, you will come here all your life for renewal and meeting. It was your breath, so softly rising and falling, that kept me silent. With your lids like buds unbroken, you watched on the curtain your life, a stream of shadows moving. When I touched your shoulder, I too had a little dreamed and woken. Highly metaphorical, as we'd expect to find in poetry. It's about a parent watching a child sleep, reflecting on, the passing of time and nostalgia and their childhood, really, and how time and our life can be so fleeting, but also ebbing and flowing like the curtain. So the questions for the poem were these. 9, what is the significance of the curtain in the first stanza? It's a metaphor. Yes, it may be a real curtain, but the curtain is symbolic, right? It's a like not a barrier, but a something between the inside and the outside world, and obviously really symbolic of home. So the options were to lift the speaker's dwindling spirits, to show the significance of their home and the curtain, promoting the speaker to recall the past, or to set a grim mood. I mean, you could obviously knock out D and probably B because it's just too literal, and then look at A and C more closely. And it is to promote the speaker recalling the past. There's a tone of reflection created immediately by the curtains softly rising and falling, and the emotive words or symbolic words there of home, who had been away so long. So all of that with the term reminded creates a tone of reflection we can easily, that's synonymous with recalling of the past. Question 10, what is the meaning of the curtain in the last stanza? Okay, so we jump here from the first stanza to the last stanza. The sleeper's breath, no, it's inaccurate. B, inside the sleeper's eyelids, it is that. The wall of the room, the shadows around the bed. Those are sort of too literal as well and inaccurate. We need to know that the eyelids have been referred to previously in the poem, and it's the buds. It's like a plant, so a flower bud that hasn't opened, and that's obviously symbolic of a maturation as well. 11, who are the two people most likely referred to in the poem? Partners in a romantic relationship? No. A parent and an adult child? Yes. Two children, childhood friends? No. Or a grandchild and a grandparent? Possibly. Much more, or everything points to the parent and adult child relationship because they talk about the same bedroom. Let's just go back. I stood in silence. No, sorry. Second stanza. The same unaltered room. Much of your childhood you were already forgetting. So the parent is obviously reflecting on the childhood. Time has gone by. They're in the same unaltered room. Also, it would be kind of unusual for Sorry, I'm back. Apologies, I'm back. I don't know what happened then. I just got exited out of the room. Can you hear me, David? Are you able to just let me know that I'm back online?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I'm sorry. I was just exited from the room, but here I am back again. So I'll just quickly scroll through to where we're up to. Apologies about that. Here we go. So okay, question 12 in line 10. So here the student is directed specifically to a significant or particular line. What does the word bud relate to? This is reading in context, word meaning in context. You have to look what bud means in that context. Now, it's referring to plant buds or flower buds, as we've said, and that symbolizes a new stage of maturity, more so than it symbolizes a new life. So I know a lot of students would have chosen the option C there. Our options were A, that his eyes were closed. Yeah, too simplistic. B, implying immaturity. More likely, we expect the metaphor to be there. New life, yes. Flower buds do symbolize new life, describing the color and texture. So because of the context, reading around the bud quote, it's most correct that it's about immaturity, because it's not about new life like a person being born or a new stage. It's actually about the stages of maturation that this parent has observed or is reflecting upon. 13, what is implied by the first verse? Again, we're directed to the verse. Season is autumn, since there is a breeze. No, that's a bit vague. The curtain is like eyelids moving up and down. The seasons are changing quickly like the moving curtains. Yes, this could, you could read into that. Or D, that the narrator misses someone. Most correct. And I mean, the persona speaking says that it reminded me of when you were home and you had been so long away. And this image created of the parents standing there in silence, just watching them sleep, really emphasizes that feeling of someone being missed. So 14, how did the curtains motivate the narrator to do something? All right, so we're looking here for motivations. And the answer is B. It reminded the narrator of a dream that they had. So the language of reflection in this poem really encourages a sense of nostalgia and thoughtfulness, insight about time and the past. And actually, it is quoted that I had a little dream as well. And I think that really is a sort of touching summary, really, of the experience of that parent watching on. Okay, moving on to part 3. We're doing okay for time here, I think. So this is the section where there's either going to be the gapped texts or the single factual text where it's split into 6 paragraphs and presented alongside summary phrases. Either way, the task is assessing students' ability to locate the main idea in paragraphs, as well as the global reading. So that's reading the text as a whole. This is a lot of reading to get through. It's quite lengthy, sometimes extracts. And so the focus here will also be about how the text is structured, and they call it here textual cohesion. So the flow of the text, what comes before, what comes after, predicting and anticipating what's going to be revealed throughout the text. So the instructions always look like this. Read the text below. It consists of, well, in this one example, 6 paragraphs. The questions are 15 through to 20. So for those questions, 15 to 20, students will choose an option, A through to option G, which in this case, it's a summary section, summary style test. So which one summarizes each paragraph the best? There's always one extra option that they don't need to use. And that, obviously helps to distinguish between students who can really locate the exact information and not just a sort of generalized gist. So here are some examples. So by the way, if I just go back, oh no, that's right. Here are some examples of the summaries from the 2023 paper. As I've just said, we're looking really for main ideas in each paragraph. So you find the main idea typically in the topic sentence or the first couple of sentences that build on the main idea. Also, the main idea is sometimes summarized or concluded in the last sentence. So good places to focus on, the first part and the last part. And the middle, yeah, there's going to be detail in there to reinforce those main ideas as well. And questions are about the text as a whole. So you do have to read the whole text. There's no just reading the topic sentence, for example, and hoping that's enough. It's not. You do need to read the whole text. I have highlighted in pink the evidence. So if we go to 15, G is the correct answer, and that is the early life of David's career and the origin of the Warren Bull method. Now, without reading through all of these samples and boring you with that, not boring, but I'm conscious of the time. Simply, you can see here, so the early life of David's career and the origin of the Warren Bull method, I have highlighted the main subject nouns and the person whom I'm looking for to see if I can locate that information quickly. And in that extract, there it is in the first sentence. In 2004, there was no way David Williams, there it is David, then an environmental science student at Deakin University, Victoria, could have predicted. So this places the time that it's about the early life of David Williams. He couldn't have predicted that 2004, which is before, would the origin of the Warren Bull method. A little bit further down, I'm sorry, I should have highlighted the word Warren Bull in the extract. It's there in the second last sentence. So all those details, bang, 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 easy for me to line up 15G. 16, the correct answer was F, the summary, and I've put the answer here. So I've just pasted F from this page here next to the answer gap 16 to help us not flick backwards and forwards too much. The Warren Bull method kickstarted David's career and inspired the film Oddball. So what am I looking for? I'm underlining. The students are underlining the main subject nouns, the object nouns, any main verbs. What are we looking for? Main ideas. So it's the Warren Bull method. It's David's career. It's the inspiration for the film Oddball. Where's the evidence? It's in the first two sentences. There's the Warren Bull method. There's kickstarted David's career. It's a gift. And inspired the 2015 film Oddball. This one is quick to get right because there's all the explicit information right there. 17, see the Middle Island Marima Project saw Marima sheepdogs trained and placed on the island. So that's, I'm sorry to flick back and forth. I won't do it too much more. The trained sheepdogs protected little penguins from the foxes. So I'd be looking for penguins, foxes, that the dogs were trained. And there it is, the penguin numbers in that summary. 18, the main idea, I'll summarize from here on for you, was looking at Zoos Victoria and the species protection programs. Again, I lifted the main ideas out of the options and I located them in the extract. And that's how I matched them up. Main subject nouns, main object nouns, any key verbs, any meta language or details of places and names, underlining those ideas, finding them in the options, match it up. That's how you do it. 19B, the key word was Tasmania and fox-free islands. Just go back to option B here. You can see there in option B, the success of breeding programs and feral-proof fencing initiatives, seeing how slow reintroduction of the species to fox-free islands. There's a bit of a clue there with the islands. The fact that Tasmania is an island is revealed as a significant point in the text. And 20E, the main discriminator there was the bandicoots, so it's highlighted. It's quite a bit further through that paragraph though, so it required a bit more reading. You couldn't skim through the first line and there it was for you, like a couple of others. That one you had to really dive right into and concentrate, close reading throughout the whole text. Okay, now part 4, we are looking at the 2022 test. Part 4 is based on 4 shorter extracts, all from different sources with different styles and different purposes, but they are linked by a theme. So they're linked by an idea. In this case, I think it's heroes, the idea of what makes a hero. That was the thematic link. The text could be formal, they might be informal. We've seen them include extracts from like blogs, articles, reviews. There were some from a novel, reports. There have been personal accounts. So you can expect to find all different types of texts here and different authors and different purposes. The candidates, that's the students, are required to locate very specific information then from across the text. So what skill are we looking at here? It's reading quickly and picking the relevant details. Reading quickly. I always hear students talk about how they felt time poor, particularly in this last section. So training to be able to speed read or read for meaning quickly and fluently is a key skill. And again, just reading a little bit every day, as well as, schoolwork and everything, can really help here to just increase. Because reading is not just about understanding. Reading teaches us how to concentrate. It teaches us how to think and maintain focus and thought and see things through, right? So if you practice that skill, then when it comes to something like this, that skill becomes much more natural and, easy and also quicker. Questions, last dot point there, may focus on implied meaning, the attitude and opinions, yes, of the authors, the purpose, the style, the register. Is it formal, informal, colloquial, etc.? Okay, so this is how the section presents itself. This is what comes first. You read the 4 extracts, it says, on the theme of heroes, tells you the theme. And then 4 questions, the last part, 21 through to 30, you choose an option A, B, C, or D. That is extract A, extract B, extract C, or extract D, which you think best answers the question. And then you match them up. So let's look here. Which writer is a research scientist? You've got to find evidence that points to the writer is a research scientist. The next one gives an indication that they know the hero that's been mentioned. Which writer is of the opinion that we are wrong to see certain people as heroes? Which writer refers to a heroic act to illustrate a particular interpretation of what heroism is? You get the idea. So on and so forth throughout each one of the options. So next to the questions there, we've got letters D, A, C, B, D. These refer to the extracts where the answer is coming from. So let's just do a few together and I'll demonstrate. Which writer is a research scientist? So 21 comes from the extract D. Here's the 4 extracts, by the way. A, B, C, and D. Okay, now right the way through extract D, it said, I've written the numbers. These numbers don't appear in the original text. I've done that to demonstrate to you where the evidence is. So next to 21 there, it says that he works at the Center for Rehabilitation, Engineering and Assistive Technology. So that's the part that points specifically to the fact that the writer is a research scientist. It tells us. That one's quite straightforward. Which writer then gives an indication? I'm doing the second one, 22, gives an indication that they know the hero mentioned. So now we're looking at register, and where can we find a personal reference to the fact that the writer knows the hero that's mentioned? It comes from extract A, which is about Kathy Freeman. And the clue is here, number 22. We had never talked about it. So basically the extract is talking about Kathy Freeman winning the race at the Sydney Olympics and how much of a huge event that was. To then reveal that we never talked about it establishes that the writer knows Kathy Freeman personally, and shows that they know them personally. Okay, 23, we'll look at which writer is of the opinion that we are wrong to see certain people as heroes. So we're looking for the opinion now of a writer, and also the idea that certain people are not heroes. The answer comes from the extract C, and there's number 23. The writer says, in fact, to my mind, one of the most horrific developments, so high modality language here showing the judgment, of our century has been the widespread acceptance of the notion that if someone is good at acting or sports or pop music, this means that the rest of us should listen to their opinions on climate change or politics. So there's sarcasm, and the whole tone of this text actually is a little bit like that. The tone is one of sarcasm, and why on earth are we attributing these sort of social media personalities as heroes just because they share information about a cause? 24, which writer refers to a heroic act to illustrate a particular interpretation of what heroism is? So here the students need to find what is the heroic act. The words heroic act may not appear anywhere. So that part is implied. They need to find the description of a heroic act. 24 comes from B, and there I've just got the number midway through the paragraph. It was an incident in which someone rescued a man who had fallen onto a train track. And it goes on to say that true heroism, defined as that type of action. Okay, 25 comes from D. Which writer observes a connection between a past hero and our human capabilities today? So let's jump through to D. And it's here next to 25, written in the first person. The writer says, suddenly it hit me. I already had a sort of omen superpower. It was my smartphone. I can see a video of faraway events, etc., etc. So that is in reference to what they say, a connection to the past. And that author had talked about their past dream of what, the future might hold. 26, we may as well just keep going for maybe two more. 26, mentions something a hero does which suddenly lightens the writer's mood. This is harder. It's a harder question because the students need to find a shift in mood. And we might find that through a shift in language, the way adjectives are used, the syntax itself, or the diction, the choice of words, perhaps the punctuation, the sentence length. What is it that interrupts the text and lightens the mood? Now, it's from extract A, and it's here, quite far down. And it says, and there in that moment, I could let go. Now, when you've read the extracts, the first part of this extract is very heavy. It's referring to the, trauma that Aboriginal people have experienced and what type of pressure was on Kathy Freeman's shoulders during that race at the 2000 Olympics. The sentences are long. There's a lot of description. It's about difficult, antsy type of feelings. And then in this line, it's a shorter sentence, and it begins with "and," which is always a good interrupter. And there in that moment, I could let it go. Let go, is about the past. 28, which writer uses mocking humor? So the students need to be able to identify humor, which is contextual. Not everybody's humor is the same. So reading the context and understanding the theme and the tone and the mood of each extract, of each text, helps to identify if something is meant to be humorous or not. Now, I mentioned earlier about the mocking, the sarcasm, okay? So you need to know what the word mocking means to know that it's about sarcasm. And it comes back to this author that's talking about how ridiculous it is that these people are considered heroes. And I'm not sure why I'm supposed to find the plight of animals any more or less poignant just because a movie star has given them a voice. So the sarcasm, the mocking there continues throughout that whole extract. That's the tone. And then 29 and 30, which writer invites the readers to think about a common example of society putting great value on heroes? So I think that I actually can't see the bottom of the screen for that section, but it's here. There we go. At the top of extract B, just look at the plethora of heroes in movies these days, and you can see how much we all love heroes. So having a good grasp of vocabulary, words like plethora, you can read into the sentence and get what it means, but knowing as many words as you can from wide reading, not reading a dictionary. You can read the dictionary, but that's not the best way because there's no context. You're much better off to read texts. And then finally, which writer provides a detail, which is a reminder of the hero's wider struggle. And that comes here in extract A. And it's a summary of, but you can't erase 2 centuries in 49.11 seconds. There's a clever comparison there to just a huge amount of time, difference in time, sorry. When Kathy Freeman stood smiling on the metal dais, an Aboriginal expo outside the stadium told the story of the ongoing battle for justice. So you'd need to read into, well, that ongoing battle for justice is referring to the hero's wider struggle, which is the reconciliation of Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal Australia following our horrible history in that area. So I recommend for this section, just before I finish up, that students do read the extracts, read the questions, and highlight the main ideas that you're looking for, like the key words, again, the subject nouns and like any detailed keywords. And then also reading the extracts through completely to get a gist. Yes, you have to read all of it, of course, but reading through and getting that quick skim and scan gist of the text, the topic sentences, the concluding sentences, allowing those keywords to pop out off the page and highlight them in a first skim and scan, that can save a lot of time. That saves a lot of time. So you can see there's a lot of reading technique that goes into this. Yes, the test is about how students think, not what they know. This is a good thing. This is a good thing because it means that it's more equal. The test discriminates in a much more equitable way. And there are definitely ways of being able to master those reading skills. And I think just knowing the format of the test and being able to practice that structure of the test, knowing what to expect, what type of multiple choice, is it comparison, will I have a poem, knowing that information just reduces the anxiety and makes the students much more able to be able to work to their full potential in that test situation. So I hope you've taken something useful from the webinar tonight. Thank you very much for your attention. It's been a pleasure to present for Pre-Uni once again. Thank you, David, for having me, and I hope that a lot of your questions were answered.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, thank you for the insightful presentation tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So I hope that every parent got better idea about the next year's selective school reading test and the preparation for the weak area you may have. And please remember the practice and continuous learning are the key to success. So I encourage you to make the most of the courses and resources available at Pre-Uni New College. And also, I apologize for some lagging issue and connection issue and audio issue during the webinar. But yes, this webinar is being recorded. So after the session, you will be able to replay the webinar by using the same webinar room link. And also, we will post the video probably in the our YouTube channel later, so you can watch it through the YouTube channel as well. Okay, thank you again for being a part of this webinar, and we wish you a wonderful evening and hope to see you soon. Thank you.